Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for tuning in. No matter how you're listening today, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and watch the show there. Maybe you're watching on X__ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. And, of course, you can listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app that you can download wherever you find your apps. And if you're in the Indianapolis area, 1430 a.m., that is the dial number thing. What's the proper term for that? I don't know. It doesn't matter because it's football season. We had preseason games all weekend. We are less than 2 weeks away. August 23rd marks the start of the college football season. Iowa State, Kansas State. Can't wait. Football, it's here, kind of. Preseason NFL stuff's going on. The Colts, they are set to play against the Packers at Lucas Oil Stadium on Saturday. And Daniel Jones is set to be the starter. That was announced yesterday by Colts head coach Shane Steichen on the Up and Adams show hosted by Kay Adams.
Well, Daniel will start this week against Green Bay, but he'll play a couple series, and then Anthony will get the bulk of the work, for the first half after that.
Shane Steichen right there. That is not surprising. This is what I figured he would do. Because it's just the inverse of what happened against the Ravens. Was that the original plan? Absolutely not. But, you adapt as things change. Anthony Richardson started. He played 2 series. He got hurt. Daniel Jones then came in and played for the rest of the first half. And it seems like they're going to do the same thing here against the Green Bay Packers, minus the Daniel Jones getting hurt part. And when I heard this, and there was a lot of speculation about what the Colts would do, this was my guess. This is what I thought that they would do. Because I was just thinking about myself and the importance of having a routine and having a schedule. I can be a very rigid person when it comes to things being sprung on me, especially over the weekend. I want to know the plan. For example, this last Saturday or two days ago, feels like forever ago, my buddy Zach Gray, who comes on the show every Friday, he got married in Cincinnati. And so my wife and I made a plan. We're going to leave the house at 2:30 to get to Cincinnati on time for this wedding. And because of that, and because I'm a ridiculous person, I just kind of packed in all the things that I would normally want to do on a Saturday, and I just did them in the morning. So I went and played pickleball with my guy, Matt Murphy. We went 5-1 over the course of 2 hours. No big deal there. Played a little bit of college football 26. Tried to pack it in so I could still do all the things that I wanted and all the things that I normally do on a Saturday, because I'm a weird person who likes to kind of do the same thing every Saturday. Play video games, play pickleball, and hang out with my wife. Check that box this last Saturday. And so when things are sprung on me, like when my wife comes to me and says, "Hey, Jonathan, I know that I forgot to tell you about this, but so-and-so has a birthday party tonight. We need to go to that for all these different reasons." It can be a little frustrating for me. I like my schedule because if I don't follow it, then I get thrown off. My rhythm for the day gets thrown off, and I just feel out of sync. And I'm wondering if that is part of what happened to Daniel Jones in that game against the Ravens. Comes out, starts 4 of 9. The first drive where he came in, it wasn't very good. He looked a little off rhythm, a little uncomfortable. And I think part of that could have been because he just kind of randomly got tossed in there. The plan was for him to come in, with 7.5 minutes left to go in the second quarter and then finish out the quarter. Right. And when that's what you're doing, the way that you warm up, it changes. It's different. And I'm just curious if Daniel Jones was kind of pushed off rhythm because something surprising happened. Kind of like when he plays actual quarterback, when surprising things happen, for example, when the defense sends a blitz, he gets out of sync and things don't go very well. And I'm curious if that's what happened to him in that game against the Ravens. So I think that Shane Steichen wants for Daniel Jones to start this next game because he wants to see what does Daniel Jones look like when things go according to plan. What does Daniel Jones look like when he knows that he's got a full, I guess it would be 10 days right? Because Thursday to Saturday in terms of between preseason games for the Colts. What does Daniel Jones look like with the full 10 days of preparation, knowing he's going to be the starter, knowing he's going to take the first snap for the offense in that game? Because rhythm, starting, coming off the bench, it's just different. It is. Like you think about Major League Baseball players. If I'm, a utility guy who may come in the 7th inning to pinch hit for whoever, then in like the 5th inning, I'm going to go down through the clubhouse and go to the batting cages, and I'm going to get some swings in. Whereas like that's obviously like there's a plan and there's a process to that. But, if you're one of those guys, usually pinch hits in the 7th inning and, the center fielder tweaks his ankle in the 3rd, and all of a sudden you're injected in there, like that's going to throw you off your rhythm a little bit. So I think that Shane Steichen just wants to see Daniel Jones in a normal, pre-planned environment where Daniel Jones knows exactly what he's getting into, where he knows exactly what the plan is. And I also think that the inverse is true. How does Anthony Richardson look when he doesn't start and he's coming in a little cold off the bench? I know it's going to be early. Shane Steichen said there in that clip, Daniel Jones is only going to play a drive or 2. But still, how does Anthony Richardson look coming in cold off the bench? And Anthony Richardson is still the primary focus of everyone when it comes to this Indianapolis Colts team. Kay Adams was here doing her little, training camp tour, popping in and out. And she was here in Indianapolis yesterday, and she interviewed a lot of people. She asked everyone about the quarterback competition, and she asked everyone about Anthony Richardson. There was not a single, what do you think about Daniel Jones? It's all about Anthony Richardson. And how could it not be? Big, athletic, strong arm. Haven't really seen him. And so DeForest Buckner was asked about Anthony Richardson and how he has handled just the quarterback competition.
His sense of urgency, you know what I mean? Just the way he responded to having a quarterback competition, you know what I mean? He was open to it and he was ready for it, and you can tell, when he got back and the camp that he's been able to put together. So I mean, it's been fun to see.
DeForest Buckner, Defo, as the people around here call him, right there, talking about Anthony Richardson and how he has responded to the competition. And this is one of those quotes where I really want to believe that this is true. I really do. Like, I really want to believe that Anthony Richardson has responded well and he's come in and he's been, better prepared and he's, taking this all on and he's just charging ahead. But this is a quote that like you're kind of supposed to say. It's like, yeah. He's taking it well. He's really responded. That's, a big word in every locker room, in every interview. He's really responded well. And I want to believe that it's true. But we don't know because Anthony Richardson got hurt in the preseason game. And we can't tell. And to me, like this is such an important thing for him. Just knowing that he has responded well and that he's really accepted this challenge, because it is no secret that Anthony Richardson, a bit immature, a little bit. I do think that he grew up quite a bit last year, being benched and then being brought back. But I just want to see how mentally tough this guy is. Like, you have to be tough playing the quarterback position. Tom Brady talks about, for him when he played, the importance of getting hit and getting back up quickly. Because like as a quarterback, like you're not tackling dudes. And so you can't really show how tough you are. So for him, he's like, I wanted to get up quickly. And for Anthony Richardson, like that's been an issue for him. Laying down on the ground way too long, kind of joking around, being a little funny and not being mentally present all the time. Like that was an issue last year. Like he really struggled with his prep. He did. And like he talked about this, or maybe it was Shane Steichen, but Michael Pittman Jr., Colts receiver, who's only 23 receptions away from being top 5 in receptions all time for the Colts. He was asked also about Anthony Richardson. And Michael Pittman Jr. claims that Anthony Richardson's preparation from last year to this year has gotten better. And I would say absolutely. Here's Colts receiver Michael Pittman Jr.
Absolutely. I think that the way that he's been able to block out all of that outside noise, because he's been getting a lot of shots like fired at him from last year to now, and just him being able to block that out and show up to work, and then show up every single day. And I would just say that his preparation, it wasn't bad or not good before, but it's gotten even to a higher level that he's doing everything that he can to put himself in the best position possible.
What about on the field, X's and O's? Have you noticed any changes or evolving?
Yeah, I feel like he's hitting those throws that he worked so hard to kind of master, like this off season. Like you see him making a lot of those touch throws where like he's dropping it in like over those backers and over those DBs, and he's doing it consistently.
Michael Pittman Jr. right there talking about Anthony Richardson and how he's improved, and he's hitting those touch passes a little bit more consistently. And he talked about his prep. And I will absolutely buy that Anthony Richardson's prep has gotten better from last year to this year. But I will not buy the idea that his prep wasn't bad last year. It was bad. It was not good. He was showing up on time, which, I say that, and it's like, yeah, he's showing up on time. No. If you're the starting quarterback of an NFL franchise, you have to show up before everybody else. This is something that Cam Ward and Tennessee understands, and it makes me believe that Cam Ward is going to be a really good starting quarterback in the NFL because he understands that part of being a pro. Anthony Richardson had to go to the offensive line coach in the middle of the year last year to work on protections. And he didn't start doing that until after he was benched for Joe Flacco. Protections are something that you should probably understand before the season starts. Maybe. I don't know. I would just think that that's a smart thing. And how do you learn those things? How do you understand how all of those things work? You show up early. You prepare better. So I have no doubt that Anthony Richardson's prep is better this year than it was last year. But the idea that his prep wasn't bad last year when he had to go to the offensive line coach in the middle of the season to continue to work on protections and how to pick up blitzes and all those things, I find so incredibly hard to believe. Now, I do also believe Michael Pittman Jr. when he says that Anthony Richardson has become a better passer. Absolutely. Hard to be worse than what Anthony Richardson was last year as a passer. He also had a healthy offseason, which is a really underrated thing because when you're healthy going into the offseason, what does that open you up to do? Practice all offseason. All offseason. You can go out to, Anthony Richardson, he's from Florida. You can head out to the swamp and you can throw a football every single day. And you can get with the trainer and other receivers, and you can work on those important things. And you're able to work on the touch passes that Michael Pittman Jr. claims that Anthony Richardson is now not only making, but making with consistency. So I do believe that he's improved as a passer. Also, the Colts X account. We're only posting videos of Anthony Richardson making touch passes. It's actually kind of funny. So I will buy into that idea that Anthony Richardson is a much improved thrower of the football. But I will not buy the idea that his prep wasn't bad last year because it clearly was. Last little piece of audio here on players being asked about Anthony Richardson. Quentin Nelson was asked by the local media, not Kay Adams, about just kind of the quarterback competition and how that's going. And this little piece right here, what he says about Anthony Richardson, people are making a really big deal out of it, and you absolutely should not. Here is Quentin Nelson talking about Anthony Richardson.
I think Anthony's having his best camp ever. I think Daniel is doing really well, and it's just awesome to see them going at it and making each other better, also rooting for each other out there, rooting for the offense's success. I think that's really big time, just like great sportsmanship and stuff.
You said Anthony's having his best camp ever. What have you seen from him specifically that's different from his last couple of years?
I would just say his energy, his experience going into year 3, maturing, and then also like what he's doing on the field with progressions and accuracy and spreading the ball around to all different guys. He's been doing a really good job.
Quentin Nelson, Colts starting offensive guard right there, talking about Anthony Richardson and how he's having his best camp ever. It's his best camp ever, guys. And since Quentin Nelson said it, I absolutely believe it. But this should be his best camp ever. The people making a big deal out of this, like, oh, Anthony Richardson, he's coming correct this year. He's gotten so much better. This should absolutely be his best camp ever because he's going into year 3. My show today should be better than the show that I did last year. And the show that I do 4 years from today should be better than the one that I'm doing right now. When you're relatively new at something, like playing quarterback in the NFL, the more you do it, the better you should get at it. At some point, you kind of plateau out. You get to your like 11, 12. At some point you plateau. But when you're as young as Anthony Richardson is, which is everybody's favorite thing to say about him, then your camps should get better. Guess what? His camp next year, whether he's the starter or the backup this year, should be better than the one that he had this year. Because the more you do something, the better you should be at it. This is not a story. This shouldn't be something that people get overly excited about. And that's what's happening. And I don't understand it. He's going into his 3rd year. He understands how everything works. This is his 3rd year with Shane Steichen. What does that mean? Same playbook, probably similar drills year in and year out. Meetings, the way that they're structured, probably the same. I'm sure that there's some tweaks here and there. But he should understand the flow of everything. Obviously, like when you show up and you're a rookie, there's a bit of like drinking from a fire hose. It's like, okay, like we have meetings at this time, and then we have practice, and then we have more meetings, and then we're back out to the field, and we're going to work on this drill, which I've never really done before, and then we're going to go do this one, and so on and so forth. But by year 3, you be rolling. You should know everything that's happening. I remember being in college, showing up my freshman year to play baseball. We had our little fall camp thing. And I remember doing drills that I had never done before. And it was brutal. I was making mistakes, just kind of felt awkward because it was new. But when I showed up for my sophomore year and we did all those same drills, guess what? I was really good at them. You know why? Because I'd done them for a year. This shouldn't be a story. This is not a big deal at all. What should be a story and what is a big deal is all of these Indianapolis Colts injuries. There were several more yesterday. It's starting to become a little concerning, especially in one room specifically. I'll tell you which room that is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you can head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__ Jonathan Smith. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And big shout out to the ZPL intern. She made brownies. I just ate 2. She made 60, so I'm probably going to go eat like 37 more before I leave today. But, oh, man, so good. You want to hear something that's not good? The injuries that are piling up for the Indianapolis Colts. There are now a lot of them. The Colts cornerback room is by far the most concerning. When you put those dudes in bubble wrap, immediately, the Colts need to call me. They say, hey, Jonathan, we can't afford any more injuries at corner. Will you come out and be like a practice corner for us? And I'll say, absolutely. I can totally do that. Right. And it would go really well for me. I'm sure. But Charvarius Ward, he's got like a hamstring thing, and Juju Brents has a hamstring thing, and Jalen Jones has an issue with his hamstring. Justin Wally, as we know, tore his ACL in the joint practice against the Baltimore Ravens. Kenny Moore hurt his right knee yesterday. So those are all the issues in the cornerback room. It seems like Charvarius Ward is going to be fine, and he should be able to play week 1 against the Miami Dolphins. But there's questions about whether or not Juju Brents or Jalen Jones will be ready, which now means we're probably looking at Samuel Womack having to defend Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill. That's not good. And then in addition to that, Alec Pierce hurt his groin. Anthony Richardson's fine, by the way, so I'm not putting him on this list. Alec Pierce hurt his groin yesterday. Kwity Paye also hurt his groin. And Nick Cross has an issue with his hip flexor. Injuries. A lot of injuries. It's problematic. And this is why I talk about depth so often. Because injuries happen unless you're the Philadelphia Eagles last year and you're going to start all 22 of your week 1 starters in the wild card round of the playoffs. Depth is the second most important thing. Behind, when you're building a roster, obviously head coach and those things matter more. But in terms of building a roster, the most important thing is quarterback. The second most important thing is depth. Okay, I compared to radio. The most important thing in radio, be interesting. The second most important thing, good topics. Because if you don't have good topics, then good luck. And if you don't have depth in the NFL, good luck. Everyone gets hurt. It happens, and the Colts are going through it right now. And when you look at this Colts depth chart, if you just look at the starters, then you sit back and you look at it and you say, that's an NFL team. Easily. An NFL team. That's a playoff team. Like when you go through the starters, you can make a real argument for it. You know, whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, that would obviously be the counter. But it's like Jonathan Taylor, that dude's a beast. Michael Pittman Jr., 23 receptions away from being top 5 all-time in receptions for the Colts. Josh Downs, everyone likes Josh Downs. Alec Pierce led the NFL in yards per reception last year. Tyler Warren is the best tight end in this draft. I don't care that Colston Loveland was drafted in front of him. Bernard Raymond just got extended. Quentin Nelson is a future Hall of Famer. Tanner Bortolini, everyone loves him. I don't get it. I felt like the more he played, the worse he got last year. Matt Gonsalves is a former 3rd-round pick. Braden Smith has been in the league and played well for forever. And then you look at the defense, and it's like Kwity Paye, good for 8 sacks. Grover Stewart, really good run defender. DeForest Buckner was first-team All-Pro in 2020. Leatu Latu was the first defensive player taken in the draft. Cameron McGrone, very concerning. Zaire Franklin was a Pro Bowler and led the NFL in tackles last year. Segun Olubi, No one really knows about him, but he looked, I thought, pretty decent in that preseason game against the Ravens. And then you got Javarius Ward and Nick Cross and Cam Bynum, who was really good in Minnesota last year. And Jalen Jones was, a decent cornerback, number 1 last year. And then Kenny Moore has been one of the better slot corners in the NFL for quite some time. And so you look at the starters, and it's like, yeah, playoff team, maybe. Wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. But then you start looking at the depth, and it's like, oh, the Colts are going to play Samuel Womack, who was released by the 49ers last year. He's going to be their starting corner week 1. That's kind of concerning. Oh, Kwity Paye is questionable. Oh, man, does that mean that they're going to play 30-year-old Tyquan Lewis, who's coming off of elbow surgery and missed like all of last year because of it? That seems kind of concerning. Oh, and Samson Ebukam, who's 30 years old and is coming off of an Achilles tear last year. He is going to play as well. That's concerning. Jacob Phillips is the backup linebacker, Desire Franklin. Who is Jacob Phillips? And then you look at the offense, and it's like Blake Freeland may have to play tackle at some point this year. Ugh. Tyler Goodson's the backup running back. Ugh. It's not great, the depth. And as the injuries continue to pile up for the Indianapolis Colts, that's going to become more and more apparent. It is. You have to have depth in the NFL if you want to win games, because you are going to sustain injuries. And the Colts don't have enough depth. They don't have enough of it. And honestly, I don't know if they have enough top-end talent either. DeForest Buckner was asked yesterday about just some of the goals for the Colts defense this year, and here is the biggest one.
No, yeah, I mean, we want to be a top 5 defense. You know what I mean? When you turn the film on, we want teams to see, all 11 guys on the screen flying around, making plays, they feeling the energy pop off of the film and everything when you're watching it. So, we got a lot to prove this year, and bringing in Lou has been great for all of us.
DeForest Buckner right there saying that the goal for this defense this year is to have a top 5 defense, which is just laughable. It is more likely for the Colts to make the AFC Championship game, which I think you and I can both agree is absolutely not going to happen. It is more likely for the Colts to make the AFC Championship game than it is for the Colts to have a top 5 defense. That is absolutely like that is an absurd goal. That is not going to happen. Okay, it's not. Like DeForest Buckner, he better turn back to the 9.5 sacked 2020 version of himself when he was first team All-Pro. There isn't enough talent on the defense. Look at the top 5 scoring defenses last year and some of the better players on the roster. The Eagles, Jalen Carter, beast. Jordan Davis, beast. Quinyon Mitchell, awesome rookie season. Darius Slay, been in the NFL, doing it at a high level for a long time. Zach Bond, almost won Defensive Player of the Year. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, one of the better safeties in the NFL. That's not even all of them. Didn't even mention Josh Sweat, who had a really good season. That's a lot of talent. The Chargers, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Derwin James was All-Pro. Tariq Still had 4 interceptions as a rookie. Diane Henley had 147 tackles, and his missed tackle rate was nowhere close to as bad as Zaire Franklin's. It's a lot of talent. The Broncos, Nick Bonito had 13.5 sacks. Zach Allen had 10.5 sacks. Jonathan Cooper had a good year at outside linebacker. Patrick Surtain won Defensive Player of the Year. John Franklin Myers had a good year. Riley Moss, the Broncos cornerback number 2, also had a really good season in his 3rd year out of Iowa. It's a lot of talent on that Broncos defense. No wonder they were 3rd in the NFL in points allowed last year. The Vikings, Andrew Van Ginkel had a double-digit sack season. Jonathan Greenard had a really good year. Byron Murphy received some votes for Defensive Player of the Year. Stephon Gilmore, a little older, not as talented as he used to be, but still a really good football player. Harrison Smith, same thing. Cam Bynum, he's here now. He had a good season last year. There's a lot of talent on that Vikings defense last season. And then you got the Packers. Xavier McKinney had 8 interceptions last year. Edgerrin Gary got Rookie of the Year votes. Rashawn Gary had a good year. Jair Alexander was on that team. Quay Walker had a good season. There's a lot of talent on that Green Bay Packers defense. No wonder they were top 5 in points allowed. The Colts were 24th in points allowed and 29th in total defense. Who are the Colts' 5 best defensive players? DeForest Buckner, who's in his 30s now. Charvarius Ward, good player. Cam Bynum, who the Vikings willingly let leave. Zaire Franklin, who, yes, I know, he was a Pro Bowler last year. Have you go look at his missed tackle percentage. It is alarmingly bad. And Kenny Moore, who's been around for forever. The Colts' best players on defense compared to the best players on the best defenses in the NFL, it's like comparing Sidney Sweeney to Melissa McCarthy. The difference is pretty clear. The Colts don't touch any of those teams in terms of talent. There's not enough of a pass rush on this Colts defense. The linebackers aren't very good. Cameron McCrone, 2 tackles against the Ravens backups in a full half of play. Are you kidding me? And he's supposed to be the starting linebacker alongside Zaire Franklin? Huh. The cornerback room seems to get thinner and thinner by the day. If the Colts are a top 10 defense, I will be surprised. DeForest Buckner, hey man, shoot for the moon and you'll land among the stars, I guess. But I mean, like, that is just really, really insane. The Colts have a top 5 defense. I'll be shocked. There's no way. Now, everyone's going to try to find a way to rationalize it and say why it's possible. Okay, Lou Anarumo is going to be a large part of that argument. And I will say, the more I hear about Lou Anarumo, the more I like him. It's kind of like I enjoy playing video games. I don't play them all the time, but here's just kind of the evolution of what gets me to buy a game. You know, like, I'll see a trailer and I'm like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. And then I'll see a second trailer and I'm like, you know what, like, that looks kind of cool. And then I'll see a third trailer and I'm like, you know what, I might buy that. And then I see a fourth trailer or my buddy buys it and they call me and like, hey, dude, like, this game's awesome. And then I'm like, you know what, fine, I'll buy it. My slow growing fondness of Lou Anarumo is working the same way. The more I hear about Lou Anarumo, the more I like him. And DeForest Buckner and Shane Steichen each had quotes on Lou Anarumo that did that to me. The more I hear about him, the more I like him. And I'll play you a couple quotes, one from DeForest Buckner and one from Shane Steichen on Lou Anarumo when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Nuggets at noon. The real Jonathan Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there and watch the show there, you can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app. I like Lou Anarumo. The more I hear about him, the more I like him. Here is DeForest Buckner laying out his first impression of Lou Anarumo.
Oh, no BS.
Your first impression?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
just no BS. You know what I mean? He just doesn't sugarcoat anybody, anything. You know, he doesn't let anything slide. There's a certain standard, and we all have to uphold that standard. And, I mean, it's been great. I've been loving it. I mean, he'll get on. It doesn't matter if it's me. It doesn't matter if it's the lowest guy on the totem pole. I mean, everybody he's going to shoot it to him straight.
DeForest Buckner talking about new defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo right there. And I like this. The Colts need a bit of seriousness. And like that's a really important thing. I think Lou Anarumo is going to bring a little bit of toughness. I like Shane Steichen. I don't know if he's a good coach or not. We don't really know, but we should know after 2 years, but we don't. But he just doesn't come off as a tough guy. I think one of the smarter moves in the NFL that I've seen was Kevin O'Connell hiring Brian Flores to be his defensive coordinator. Kevin O'Connell does not scream tough guy. He doesn't. He doesn't seem like a tough guy. He seems like, he's a let's drop back and throw the football 50 times a game. Like we're not going to run the football or anything like that. Like Andy Reid played offensive guard. Tough guy. Kyle Shanahan wants to run the football and impose his will on teams. Tough guy. One of the biggest problems for the Miami Dolphins is Mike McDaniel's the head coach, and he's not a tough guy. And Kevin O'Connell, I think, was in a similar boat. And so he brings in Brian Flores, who brought in a very large element of like seriousness and toughness. And the Vikings last year were incredibly tough. Okay? The Colts need a little bit of that. And Lou Anarumo seems like a serious dude who is going to be tough. And that is so incredibly important. And another thing that I think kind of leads into him being serious and holding these guys to a high standard, the system that Lou Anarumo runs is incredibly, it's very multiple. Like we went through the Gus Bradley high school defense last year. We're going to run cover 3 every down, and everything we do is going to be based out of cover 3. When you're running the same thing every day in practice, and you're looking at the same stuff every day in film study, things kind of become monotonous and stale. And when things become stale, it is, I think, very easy to fall into a less intense rhythm when you're only doing one thing, when you're only running cover 3. When you're multiple, and it sounds like the Colts defense will be, I've got Shane Steichen here in a second talking about that. It challenges you more. It stretches your brain more. And when you're required to learn multiple things, like you have to be more engaged. And Coach Anarumo, he holds guys to this very high standard, and you have to, because guys are learning multiple things. It's like your math teacher in school. You know why your math teacher always seemed to be significantly harder on you? This was my experience, at least. I'm assuming you had the same one. My math teacher always seemed like the toughest one. And my math teacher, it was always a she. She always held us to a higher standard than all my other teachers. Why? Because if you don't learn, algebra 1, then you can't learn algebra 2 or whatever. Like they understood that things stacked one on top of the other on top of the other. And this Colts defense works, I think, pretty similarly. Here is Colts head coach Shane Steichen on what he likes about having Lou Anarumo around.
Well, he is very demanding, and I love that about him. His scheme's multiple on the back end, putting guys in position to go make plays, holds those guys accountable, and I think that's really good. And obviously adding the additions of Mooney and Cam Bynum on the back end is huge for us in the secondary. So really excited about that, really excited about what he's going to bring to our team.
Shane Steichen right there talking about Lou Anarumo and just the excitement of this multiple defense and all these other things. And I love hearing that the defense is going to be multiple. When teams would play the Colts last year, they knew what was coming. That's why they were 24th in points allowed and 29th in total defense. That's part of it. Another part of it, the Colts offense couldn't really stay on the field. And obviously, if your defense is on the field longer, they're probably going to give up more points and more yards. But the defense itself wasn't very good. If a teacher gave you a test and you knew what the questions and answers would be before, then you'd probably score pretty high on that test. And that's what it was like playing against the Indianapolis Colts last year. Team sat back, like, oh, they're going to run cover 3 all day? All right, well, let's rip the seams. We can run the football this way. And it was just easy. It's like a knife cutting through butter that you just stuck in the microwave. So, it just made things easier on the opposing offenses. It's why the Packers and Malik Willis were able to beat the Colts last year, because they knew exactly what to expect. So while I don't think that the Colts will have a top 5 defense like DeForest Buckner and the rest of this defense wants to have, I do think that they'll be better because of how multiple the Lou Anarumo defense is. They're going to go into their bye week, and then they're going to come out of their bye week, and they're going to play the Chiefs. And Lou Anarumo, look, the Colts probably aren't going to win that game, but I do think that the Colts will have something different to throw at the Chiefs that week. Lou Anarumo is going to dial it up. He's going to, quote unquote, get in the lab and work on some new defense to throw at teams. Whereas Gus Bradley's just like, cool, bye week. I'm going to hang out. And we're going to run more cover 3 when we start playing football again. So I do think that Lou Anarumo is an upgrade at defensive coordinator. With that being said, that's not saying much given how bad Gus Bradley was at his job. I don't have any audio, or I didn't pull any of the audio from the Lou Anarumo interview with Kay Adams. He didn't really say much. He basically said the same thing over and over and over again. We have to tackle better than what the Colts did last year, and they have to take the ball away. They have to take the ball away. And I just appreciate how much he brought up the idea of taking the football away in his interview. If you listen to Gus Bradley last year, he hardly ever brought up this idea of taking the football away. He just said fundamentals. That was the Gus Bradley buzzword. Fundamentals. We want to be fundamentally sound, and fundamentally we want to, blah, 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 blah. Not Lou Anarumo. He said, forget fundamentals. Go get the football, please. That and tackling were the 2 biggest points that he made. And I think that's part of why we're going to see the Colts starters play a full quarter. That is what Shane Steichen said. We are going to see starters on both sides of the football play a full quarter. They'll obviously have plans for guys that are hurt. Like if we saw Kwity Paye, like I'd be a little surprised given, he's got the groin thing. I doubt we'll see Alec Pierce and so on. So obviously guys that are hurt, like they probably won't play. But the guys that are healthy, they're going to play. And I'm hoping that this kind of helps the Colts be a little more physical. And most importantly, I hope it helps them tackle these guys a little bit more, because they were the worst tackling team in the NFL last year. It was a major, major problem. So hopefully playing a little bit in the preseason is going to help these guys get off to a better start. I think that this year is going to be really tough for the Indianapolis Colts. I think they're going to be bad. If I had to bet the over under 7.5 total wins, I would bet the under. This Colts team isn't going to be good. But I do think that Tyler Warren is going to be. Here is Quentin Nelson talking about the Colts' newest rookie.
I would just say, he has really just been, a great rookie. Each day, he comes to work and just has his head down and he just grinds. I mean, after the first camp practice, he's in there doing bicep curls and some shrugs and triceps. Like, what are you doing, rookie? You're trying to make me look bad, all this stuff. And then he's just been really consistent, tough. He's already shown a lot of toughness and just consistency every day. I feel like you don't see the kid have a bad day. But you talk to him, and he's always like, I could do better. And you just love to see that, someone who is humble and wants to get better each day.
Quentin Nelson Colts offensive guard right there, talking about Tyler Warren. And there's a pretty similar effect here going on with Tyler Warren that I got going on with Coach Anarumo. The more I hear people talk about Tyler Warren, the more I like him. We all know that the Colts are filled with just nonsense. Like, they just say nonsensical things all the time. Quentin Nelson is the exception to that. When Quentin Nelson says something, I actually believe him. He's on a very short list of players that when he talks for the Colts, I absolutely believe him. So when Quentin Nelson calls Tyler Warren tough, and he calls Tyler Warren a hard worker, and he calls him consistent, and he just, blanketly says he's a good rookie, and all the other great stuff that he said about Tyler Warren, that to me is incredibly notable because Quentin Nelson is a pretty straightforward guy. And Dan and I, we talked about this, or he's talked about this on his show, and I've commented how the best players in every sport at the highest level, right, at the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball level, it's just the guys who are willing to get in there and work. Because everyone who plays in the NFL is really talented. Everyone who plays in the NBA is really talented. The question is just whether or not you put in the work required to be better than everybody else. And I'm kind of surprised that we don't hear about more stories like Tyler Warren working out after practice and doing these things with guys that are his age. Tyler Warren is 23 years old. That makes him 2 years younger than me, which makes me feel really bad about myself. Kobe Bryant and the Mamba mentality is something that has been idolized by my generation. And, when Quentin Nelson is talking about how he's working out after practice and he's hitting biceps and triceps and shoulders, and he's saying, hey, rookie, you're going to make me look bad, and all that kind of stuff. Like, I couldn't help but think about Kobe Bryant, right? Because that is something that he would 1,000% would have done when he showed up, right? Because he wanted to be great. So he worked out all the time, and he just did all these extra little things to make himself better. And, when Quentin Nelson said, Tyler Warren's working out after practice, and that was my first thought. And this is why he's going to be really good. He's doing the extra work. He's consistent. I love hearing that about him. A.D. Mitchell last year, he was up and down. Anthony Richardson, up and down. It's a really common thing for young players to just, have really good days and then really bad days and then like an okay day and then a bad day and then a great day. It's very normal for young players to be up and down early in their career. Doesn't sound like that's the case with Tyler Warren. These guys know what they're getting from him every time he shows up. And that is a great sign that he's going to be a really good pro for a really long time. And the Colts are going to be bad this year. No way around it. With that being said, I do think that Tyler Warren is going to be a really bright spot for this Colts team. He's going to significantly help whoever is playing quarterback, whether that's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. Hopefully, it's Anthony Richardson. Hopefully, we get a really good look at Anthony Richardson on Saturday. So that's the hope. But either way, Tyler Warren should be a very valuable piece in uplifting whoever the starting quarterback is. So congratulations to Chris Ballard on not messing up that draft pick. He found a horseshoe guy who's going to work hard. Seems like a nice guy as well. And, he's going to stick around here for quite some time and hopefully be a really, really good player for the Colts. So when we come back, top of the hour, 11 o'clock, we're going to talk a little bit about Shane Steichen and what he had to say about the starting quarterback situation yesterday on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams. He reveals the plan for the Colts of who's going to start who's going to start a quarterback against the Green Bay Packers. He kind of lays out who's going to get the bulk of the work. I've got that audio for you when we come back at 11 o'clock.
do this. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__ Jonathan Smith if you want to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, you can also listen on 1430 AM. I got a big news for tomorrow. We got a lot going on. It's great. So tomorrow, from noon to 3 during the Dan Dockett Show, we have our 3-point shootout. If you head over to indiesportsticket.com, you can head over there. You can sign up to compete against me, the best shooter in the state of Indiana. So if you would like to lose to me tomorrow at the state fair, just head over to indiesportsticket.com, sign up, and I will be there ready to hand out an L. Simple as that. It's going to be a great time. I can't wait. Seriously, I've been practicing. I've got plans after the show today to go get more shots up because the work never stops. It never stops. So if you would like a chance to lose to me tomorrow at the Indiana State Fair in a 3-point shooting contest, indiesportsticket.com, head over there and sign up. Daniel Jones is going to be the starter against the Green Bay Packers. This coming from Shane Steichen yesterday as he did an interview with Kay Adams from the Up and Adams show on the FanDuel Sports Network. Here's Coach Steichen laying out the plan for Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson against the Green Bay Packers.
Well, Daniel will start this week against Green Bay, but he'll play a couple series, and then Anthony will get the bulk of the work, for the first half after that.
Shane Steichen right there talking about the plan. They're going to have Daniel Jones start, but Anthony Richardson is going to get the majority of the reps. And this makes sense. This is kind of the way that I thought that they would do it because rhythm and routine and those things matter. I can be incredibly rigid when it comes to things being sprung on me. I like my plan. I like being organized. I like knowing what I'm going to do every single day, especially on my Saturdays. I work very hard during the week to make sure I have as little to do on Saturday as possible because I want to do the things that I want to do on Saturdays. And occasionally, because my wife is significantly more social than I am, she will kind of like spring things on me a little bit that I either forgot about or she forgot to tell me, be like, hey, Jonathan, it's so-and-so's birthday. They have a party tonight. We need to go to that. I'm like, do we need to go to that? Like, do we really need to? She's like, yes, we do. And I'm like, all right, fine. And so it kind of throws off my rhythm. So I like knowing ahead of time. That way I can kind of schedule out all the things that I want to do. It's like, for example, Saturday, I went to a wedding in Cincinnati, about, an hour and 45-minute drive from where I live. And because I knew about it ahead of time, I played pickleball in the morning. My boy Matt Murphy, we went 5-1, no big deal. I was able to play some video games a little bit, it was all scheduled out, right? And so my rhythm for the day was pretty normal. And I think that same thing applies in sports. Daniel Jones started 4 of 9 passing in that game against the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, part of that, I think, could have been because he just randomly got tossed in there. When you show up and it's like, all right, Daniel, Anthony Richardson, like he's going to start. He's going to play a quarter and a half. And then, with about 7-ish minutes left to go in the second quarter, we're going to put you in to close the quarter. And then Daniel Jones says, okay. And I'm sure that he put together some sort of plan. Like, all right, like I'll go through my normal pregame warm-up stuff. But then with about, 10 minutes left to go in the second quarter, I'm going to start throwing. We'll really stretch it out a little bit towards the end right before I go in there. Right? Like I'm sure he had some sort of plan to be ready. And I'm sure that he was ready to follow that plan. And then Shane Steichen is like, hey, Anthony, he just dislocated his pinky. Daniel, you're up. And then he starts 4 of 9, and he looked a little flustered. And and a little bit out of rhythm. Okay, like the second drive on, he was fine. Your rhythm is impacted by whether you start or not, by whether the plan is followed or not. And I'm sure that Shane Steichen wants to see, how does Daniel Jones look, preparing for a game when he knows he's going to start? What does he look like on game day? Right? Like, how does the pregame routine for Daniel Jones look? And how does he look when he knows what's going to happen and it actually happens? So very intrigued to see how Daniel Jones looks coming up here on Saturday when they host the Green Bay Packers. Another part of this, obviously, is how does Anthony Richardson look when he doesn't start and he's coming in cold off the bench? How does he perform in those drives and in those series? And obviously, we want to see as much from Anthony Richardson as possible. I want him to be the starter. You should want him to be the starter. Maybe you, for some reason, want the not very good Daniel Jones to be the starter. I don't really understand that, but that's how some people feel. So hopefully Richardson comes in off the bench after those two series that Daniel Jones is going to play, and then he, plays really well, and we walk away from that game like, yeah, let's go with Anthony Richardson as the starter. Speaking of Anthony Richardson, he is still the darling of the media. The Colts posting videos of him throwing the football, and all the insiders are posting videos of him throwing the football. And yesterday, Kay Adams was in town. She travels around to each team's training camp, and she does interviews with everybody. And every interview she did, she asked about the quarterback competition. And then she would follow it up with a question about Anthony Richardson. She never once asked a question about Daniel Jones. So she asked DeForest Buckner yesterday about Anthony Richardson and how he has responded to this quarterback competition.
His sense of urgency, you know what I mean? Just the way he responded to having a quarterback competition, you know what I mean? He was open to it, and he was ready for it, and you can tell, when he got back, and the camp that he's been able to put together. So I mean, it's been fun to see.
DeForest Buckner, right there, Defo, as they call him around here, right there, talking to Kay Adams about Anthony Richardson and kind of how he's responded to having the quarterback competition, and how he can see that there's a real sense of urgency in all these things. And, this is one of those responses that I really want to believe is true, but I can't, because you're kind of supposed to say that. And, I really want to believe that the sense of urgency is there from Anthony Richardson, and that he's kind of figured it out a little bit, and he understands that it's like, it's do or die time. Like, you're either going to be a starting quarterback for the Colts, or you're going to be a backup and probably be a backup for the rest of your career, because people are going to sit back and be like, you couldn't beat out Daniel Jones. Like, come on now. Like, we can't make you our starting quarterback when that's the case. So he's like, this is a really big year for him. He's either going to set himself up to be a starter, or he's going to be Trey Lance, and we're going to see him playing in preseason games a couple years from now, and probably not in a Colts uniform, and we're going to be like, he's, that's cool. He's fun. It's a fun preseason quarterback, because that's all that Trey Lance is now. And I really hope that Anthony Richardson understands that, and that is the source of his increased sense of urgency. And we're really not going to be able to tell until he plays more than a series and a half in the preseason, or until he plays in the regular season, because Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, whoever the starter is going to get hurt at some point this season. Like, they both have a very long history of being injured. So hopefully it's Richardson. Hopefully he can stay healthy, but I'm not buying into that. Michael Pittman Jr. was also asked about Anthony Richardson and just kind of what looks different from last year to this year. And Michael Pittman Jr. highlighted Anthony Richardson's preparation and what that looks like this season compared to previous years.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the way that he's been able to block out all of that outside noise, because I mean, he's been getting a lot of shots like fired at him from last year to now, and just him being able to block that out and show up to work, and then show up every single day. And I would just say that his preparation, it wasn't bad or not good before, but it's gotten even even to a higher level, that he's doing everything that he can to put himself in the best position possible.
What about on the field? X's and O's. Have you noticed any changes or evolving?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's hitting those throws that he worked so hard to kind of master, like this, off season. Like you see him making a lot of those touch throws where like he's dropping it in like over those backers and over those DBs, and he's doing it consistently.
Michael Pittman Jr. right there talking to Kay Adams on the Up and Adams show over on the FanDuel Sports Network. He, talking to her about Anthony Richardson and what's kind of different from last year to this year. And he highlighted that his prep has gotten better. And I will 1,000% buy into that. I absolutely believe that Anthony Richardson's preparation has gotten better. We've heard Anthony Richardson talk about this, how he's studying his playbook more and he's getting in earlier. And like there seems to be, to DeForest Buckner's point, a higher sense of urgency of I have to figure this stuff out right now, or I'm going to be a backup and I'm going to miss out on getting paid $50 million a year like a lot of these quarterbacks in the NFL are right now. So I will buy that the prep is better. What I will not buy, though, is that his prep was not bad last year, as Michael Pittman Jr. said. There's no way. His prep was terrible last year. He had to go to the offensive line coach in the middle of the season. In the middle of the season to work on protections and, learning, where to slide the line and all these things. That seems like something that should have been figured out maybe not halfway through his second season as an NFL quarterback. Now, like if that's your rookie year, okay, that is slightly more understandable. Not in your second year, though. Like you should have a pretty decent grip. Now, obviously, you're not going to have the answer to everything, especially with how little Anthony Richardson had played up till that point. But still, you have to go to it's incredible. His prep was obviously bad last year. Clearly, it's part of why he got benched. Also, it took him getting benched to reach a point where he would go and ask the offensive line coach those questions. That's very problematic. So I will 1,000% buy into this idea that Anthony Richardson's preparation has improved from last year to this year because it couldn't have gotten any worse. We're talking about a guy who didn't understand protections halfway through the season. Jeez Louise. Come on, Michael. Come on. Just be honest. We're not dumb. Okay? We track the news. We know what's going on. Now, I do believe that Anthony Richardson has improved as a passer because I track the news and I know what's going on. He had a healthy offseason, which is a really important thing. He had shoulder surgery, his during the offseason after his rookie year, which means you can't throw. Like when you have surgery on your labrum, like Anthony Richardson did, it is a long recovery to being able to throw again. So he's good. He had a full offseason to go down to Florida and to work with his quarterback coach. And I'm sure that they worked on all those passes that Michael Pittman Jr. brought up. Those like touch passes over the linebackers and in front of the safeties and throwing with anticipation and all those things. So I do believe that he's improved as a passer because he's had a full offseason to work on it. Also, the Colts official X account has posted countless videos of him making those types of throws. So I will buy that. But the idea that his prep last year was good or wasn't bad is just absurd to me. Come on, Michael. We don't forget. Or correction, I don't forget about the terrible year that was Anthony Richardson's year last year as an NFL quarterback. All right, a lot of things didn't work out the way that they should have, and a lot of that was because he didn't prepare the way that he needed to. Quentin Nelson also thinks that Anthony Richardson has improved as a quarterback from last year to this year. He went as far to say that this is the best training camp Anthony Richardson has ever had.
I think Anthony's having his best camp ever. I think Daniel's doing really well, and it's just awesome to see them going at it and making each other better, also rooting for each other out there, rooting for the offense's success. I think that's really big time and just like great sportsmanship and stuff.
You said Anthony's having his best camp ever. What have you seen from him specifically that's different from his last couple of years?
I would just say his energy, his experience going into year 3, maturing, and then also like what he's doing on the field with progressions and accuracy and spreading the ball around to all different guys. He's been doing a really good job.
Colts offensive guard Quentin Nelson right there talking about Anthony Richardson and how his energy's better and he's a little more accurate and how he's having his best training camp ever. And fans are awesome because they overreact to everything. And the overreactions to this are pretty incredible. I mean, no, this should be Anthony Richardson's best training camp ever. And since Quentin Nelson said it, I absolutely believe it. With that being said, this isn't a story. This is simply how it should be. My show today should be better than the show that I did last year on this day. And the show that I do 4 years from now on August 11th, so on August 11th, 2029, when I do a show, it should be better than this one. Because the more you do something, the better you should get at it. Especially when you understand how things are going to go. For example, I played baseball in college. And I showed up. We had our first day of fall practice. And we're doing these drills that I had never done before. They like set out a ladder. And we had to like a agility ladder. And we had to like shuffle our feet in and out and then field a ground ball. And like that was kind of weird. And I wasn't very good at it. And then we had to do another drill where we had to hold a baseball in one hand and then take ground balls. And so like you would field it and then you would like go to reach for the ball and be like, wait, I already have a ball in my hand. And then you had to throw it. It was weird. And it was uncomfortable. And I had a pretty bad fall camp, right? My freshman year of college. But I came back my sophomore year, and because I had already done all those drills before, and I knew what to expect, and I understood the rhythm and the flow of how camp would progress, I had a much better camp. My second year opposed to my freshman year. Anthony Richardson has been playing for the same head coach, the same playbook for the last 3 years. This is year 3 of it. And because of that, he should be better just because he knows what's going on. He knows how Shane Steichen wants to run practice. He knows what time Shane Steichen wants to have meetings and what's going to be said in those meetings and the importance of, or let me back up. And he understands what Shane Steichen finds important in those meetings and what needs to be said and how practice needs to look and how it needs to be ran and how when they do these drills, they need to look like this. And this is the emphasis of it. The more you do something, the better you should get at it. Believe it or not, Anthony Richardson has not been hurt in training camp, or he wasn't hurt in training camp, his rookie year and his second year. So this is his 3rd year of it. He should be better at it. When you're relatively new at something, like Anthony Richardson is to playing quarterback in the NFL, the more you do it, the better you should get at it. And this isn't just a football thing. This is just can be applied to everything. He's in his 3rd year. He knows how everything works in the offseason and with training camp. And he's coming off of a healthy offseason where he really got to work on his game. So I do believe that, as Quentin Nelson said, he's a little more accurate than he was. This shouldn't be a story, but we're bored. We don't have a preseason game again until Saturday. So it's sadly going to be. But it shouldn't be a story at all. What should be a story is all of these injuries that are piling up for the Indianapolis Colts. There's one position group in particular that it is very, very concerning, the amount of injuries that keep on happening. I'll tell you what position group that is in 4 minutes.
May, one day, you must listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Of course, you can turn your radio dial to 1430 AM, and you can listen to the show there if you're in the Indianapolis area. Now, Colts, you know, Anthony Richardson, best training camp ever. Not a big deal. It should be happening to him this season. Now, the bigger story coming out of practice yesterday are the injuries for the Indianapolis Colts. They are piling up higher and higher and higher. It is becoming problematic, especially in the Colts cornerback room. The injuries in the Colts cornerback room are starting to pile up like the student loan debt crisis. Just more and more every single day. Javarius Ward did something to his hamstring, and Juju Brents did something to his hamstring, and then Jalen Jones, guess what? Another hamstring. Now, the good news is that Javarius Ward is projected to be okay for week 1. Juju Brents, Jalen Jones, still question marks. And so originally it was like, okay, like that just gives Justin Wally, 3rd-round pick out of Iowa State, an opportunity to grab that starting spot. And then he tears his ACL in that joint practice against the Baltimore Ravens. And then as of yesterday, Kenny Moore hurt his right knee. So it looks like we're looking at Samuel Womack getting really important reps in that week 1 game against the Miami Dolphins, where he's probably going to have to cover Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill. That's kind of concerning. Kind of concerning. Oh, in addition to that, yesterday we had some more injuries. Alec Pierce hurt his groin. Kwity Paye also has a groin. Nick Cross hurt his hip flexor. So if you're a Hunter Wohler fan, you might get to see a little bit of Hunter Wohler playing strong safety to start the season. And the thing that I've talked about the most this offseason with the Indianapolis Colts has undoubtedly been the quarterback battle. Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones. Who should you want to be the starter? You know, the pros and cons of Daniel Jones, and then the pros and cons of Anthony Richardson. Has Anthony Richardson really gotten better? And like we've tackled all of those questions. But the thing I've talked about the second most is the amount of depth on this Indianapolis Colts roster. Because it is the second most important thing in building a roster. You want a great quarterback, and after that, I want depth everywhere. Because what's happening to the Colts right now is probably going to happen to every other team in the NFL at some point this season, where they look down at the roster and they say, oh, geez, we got like 2 injuries at receiver, and, you know, one of our corners tweaked his hamstring last week, and, you know, our right guard has a deep bone bruise, and so on and so forth. Injuries happen to everybody. There's a saying in the NFL: the best team doesn't win the Super Bowl. The healthiest team does. And that's what we saw last year. You know, the Chiefs, starting left tackle gets hurt. They ended up having to move a guard out there, and he really struggled. And then he looked across, and the Eagles started all 22 of their week 1 starters in the wild card round. The healthiest team wins. And as of right now, the Indianapolis Colts are not the healthiest team. And this is why depth is important. Everybody gets hurt. And the Colts are going through it right now at the cornerback position. And it's kind of tough, because if you would have asked me before the season, hey, Jonathan, what position group do the Colts have the most amount of depth at? My answer probably would have been corner or wide receiver. So the Alec Pierce injury isn't a big deal. You know, they can slide A.D. Mitchell into that spot and be fine. But, you know, corner, same thing. You know, Javarius Ward, Justin Wally, Jalen Jones, Juju Brents. Like that's 4 guys right there that were either drafted at a pretty decent number, or have a history of being good in the NFL. I was like, yeah, like there's some depth there. All 4 of them down. So now you're going to rely on guys like Samuel Womack, and that is not a good thing. The biggest injury of all the ones that I just listed is undoubtedly that Kwity Paye injury. It's Tyquan Lewis stepped right up, fresh off of elbow surgery that caused you to miss like the entire year last year. Or maybe they'll go to Samson Abukum instead. Hey, Samson. Hey, 30-year-old, fresh off of, a torn Achilles last year. You're up. Congratulations. It's very, very concerning. The Colts defensive line has to stay healthy this year because there's not a ton of depth. If we're relying a whole bunch on Darrell, Nachimi, and Desmond Little, then that's not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. Now, DeForest Buckner wants a top 5 defense this year. He was asked about goals for the Indianapolis Colts defense this upcoming season yesterday by Kay Adams, and here's what he had to say.
No, yeah, I mean, we want to be a top 5 defense. You know what I mean? When you turn the film on, we want teams to see, all 11 guys on the screen flying around, making plays, feeling the energy pop off of the film and everything when you're watching it. So, we got a lot to prove this year, and bringing in Lou has been great for all of us.
DeForest Buckner right there talking about this goal of having a top 5 defense this upcoming season. And I like it. When I was in middle school, there was there was a quote that touched my heart, shoot for the moon and you'll land among the stars. So cheesy, so corny. It is exactly something that a 7th grader, like I was at the time, would really like hearing. And that's kind of what it feels like the Colts are doing, because there's not a chance that the Indianapolis Colts are going to have a top 5 defense in the NFL. No chance whatsoever. The only way that happens is if DeForest Buckner turns back the clock to 2020 when he was first team All-Pro and was a legitimately dominant force in the middle of this Indianapolis Colts defense. And Leatu Latu makes a leap to being a 10-sack guy. If both of those things happen, then okay, maybe. Maybe those 2 guys can wreak enough havoc, and Kwity Paye can continue to be an 8-sack guy, and Grover Stewart can keep being a good run defender. And if all those things happen, then maybe. But I don't think that those things are going to happen. There's just not enough talent on this Colts defense for them to have a top 5 defense in the NFL. Last year, the Colts were 24th in scoring defense and 29th in total defense. And when you look at the top 5 scoring defenses in the NFL last year, the talent is it's plain as day, the difference between these teams and the Colts. So the Eagles led the NFL in points per game allowed last year. Here are their best players. Jalen Carter, one of the best defensive tackles in football. Jordan Davis, another really good defensive tackle. Quinyon Mitchell had an outstanding rookie year playing corner. Darius Slay has been doing it up for a long time. Zach Bond got Defensive Player of the Year votes as a linebacker. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is one of the best safeties in the NFL. It's a lot of talent. The Chargers were second. They had guys like Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, two good edge rushers who've been around for a while. Derwin James was second team All-Pro at safety. Terheeb Still had 4 interceptions playing corner as a rookie. Diane Henley had 147 tackles without the horrendously bad missed tackle percentage like our guy Zaire Franklin here in Indy. It's a lot of talent. The Broncos, Nick Bonito had 13.5 sacks. Zach Allen was a double-digit sack guy. Jonathan Cooper had a good year. Patrick Surtain won Defensive Player of the Year last year. John Franklin Myers and Riley Moss both had really good years as well. It's a lot of talent on that Denver Broncos defense. The Vikings, Andrew Van Ginkel, double-digit sacks. Jonathan Greenard had a good year. Byron Murphy had a really good year at corner. Stephon Gilmore, older player, still productive. Harrison Smith, older player, still very productive. And then Cam Bynum. Way more talent on that Vikings defense last year than what's on the Colts defense This year, the Packers were 5th. Xavier McKinney had 8 interceptions on the year. Edgerrin Gary got rookie of the year votes playing on the edge. Rashawn Gary had a good year. Jair Alexander was on that team. Quay Walker had a really good year at linebacker for the Packers last year. So there's a lot of talent on that Packers defense, significantly more than what the Indianapolis Colts have. Who are the Colts' 5 best defensive players this year? DeForest Buckner's on that list. Travarius Ward is on that list. Cam Bynum, he's on that list. Who else here? Zaire Franklin is probably one of the 5 best players on this Colts defense. And Kenny Moore, who got hurt the other day, is also on this list of the 5 best players on this Colts defense. Like that's not a lot of talent. Comparing the Colts' best defensive players to the best players on the best defenses in the NFL is like comparing Sydney Sweeney to Melissa McCarthy. The difference is pretty clear. The Colts don't come close to touching any of the best defenses in the NFL in terms of talent. There's not enough pass rushing talent. Maybe Leatu Latu makes us change our mind on that. Maybe JT Tuimoloau makes us change our mind on that. The linebackers aren't very good. Sorry, I'm not really a Cameron McGrone believer. The cornerback room seems to get thinner by the day. If the Colts are a top 10 defense, I'll be surprised. I appreciate DeForest Buckner setting his sights high, but this is not going to be a top 5 defense by any stretch of the imagination. Now, maybe they become a top 10 defense, and if it does happen, it'll be because Leatu Latu improved and because Lou Anarumo was a significant upgrade over Gus Bradley. I've got audio of guys talking about Lou Anarumo when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there and watch the show there, you can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you download your apps. And of course, you can also listen on 1430 AM if you're in the Indianapolis area. The Colts, that is all we're talking about. They play their next preseason game on Saturday against the Green Bay Packers. Can't wait. It's going to be a blast. Can't wait to watch that game. Okay, Anthony Richardson is set to take the bulk of the snaps that day at quarterback. Daniel Jones will be getting the start, though. And I'm also just intrigued to see how this defense looks, because the defense in that first preseason game against the Ravens, it was pretty ugly. But we have to remember that guys like Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner, those guys didn't play, which is a very important thing that needs to be remembered. They will play for about a quarter for the first quarter of this upcoming game against the Green Bay Packers. So we're actually going to get a real look at what this team looks like with the good players on the field. Because obviously your run defense and your pass rush probably aren't going to be as good when guys like Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner aren't playing. And I want to see what this Colts defense looks like with its starters on the field, with Coach Anarumo calling the plays. Apparently, Lou Anarumo's great. Apparently, he's great. I would like to see it happen, because the run defense against Baltimore was anything but great. Here is DeForest Buckner talking about Coach Anarumo and just kind of his first impression of him.
Oh, no BS.
Your first impression?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
just no BS. You know what I mean? He just doesn't sugarcoat anybody, anything. You know, he doesn't let anything slide. There's a certain standard, and we all have to uphold that standard. And, I mean, it's been great. I've been loving it. I mean, he'll get on. It doesn't matter if it's me. It doesn't matter if it's the lowest guy on the totem pole. I mean, everybody he's going to shoot it to him straight.
Everybody can get it, according to DeForest Buckner, on how Lou Anarumo runs his team. And this is a good thing for the Colts. They need this. They need a little bit of seriousness. They need an injection of toughness on this team. And coaches impact that. Who your coaches are and who the best players are your team are usually define whether or not you are tough. You know why the Patriots were always tough? Because Bill Belichick and Tom Brady were both incredibly tough. You know why the Chiefs are tough? Because Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Chris Jones, they're all very tough dudes. You have to have that in your best players and with your coaches. The Minnesota Vikings last year were incredibly tough. You know why? Because they hired Brian Flores, one of the toughest dudes in the league, to be their defensive coordinator. Now, is Lou Anarumo as tough as Brian Flores? I don't know. I would guess not. Brian Flores, pretty tough dude. But it is good that the Colts have a little bit of that now with their coaching staff, because I like Shane Steichen. He doesn't exactly scream toughness. I like Jim Bob Cooter. I appreciate that when the media asks him questions, he actually answers. But nothing about Jim Bob Cooter screams toughness. Just listen to his name. His name is Jim Bob Cooter. That doesn't exactly, yell toughness. And one of the things that I like about Lou Anarumo and that I like about what DeForest Buckner said about the seriousness required to play for him, part of that is because of how Lou Anarumo runs his defense. Gus Bradley basically ran cover 3 every snap. When you're running the same thing, it becomes monotonous. And it's easy to fall into a less intense rhythm when you're only running cover 3. You have to switch it up. But when you're multiple, and it's like, all right, like today we're going to install all of our cover 3 stuff. And then tomorrow we're going to install all of our blitz packages out of cover 3. And then the day after that, we're going to look at all of our man-to-man stuff. And then we're going to look at our cover 2. And then so on and so forth, right? when you're multiple, like it sounds like the Colts defense will be, it stretches your brain more. And when you're required to learn multiple things, you have to be more engaged. And Coach Anarumo has to hold you to a standard for all of these things that you are learning. So I think that the new system and the toughness, the potential, let's call it potential because we don't really know yet, and the potential toughness of Lou Anarumo makes me a slightly bigger believer in this Colts defense. Here is Coach Shane Steichen, the man who hired Lou Anarumo as his defensive coordinator, and just his thoughts on Lou.
Well, he is very demanding, and I love that about him. His scheme's multiple on the back end, putting guys in position to go make plays, holds those guys accountable, and I think that's really good. And obviously adding the additions of Mooney and Cam Bynum on the back end is huge for us in the secondary. So really excited about that, really excited about what he's going to bring to our team.
Coach Steichen right there talking about Colts' new defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, very excited about how multiple he's going to be and likes how demanding he is as well. And look, I love hearing that they're going to be multiple. When teams would play the Colts last year, they knew what was coming. That's why the Colts were 24th in points allowed and 29th in total defense. If you were going to take a test and you knew what was going to be on the test in terms of the questions and you had the answers to the test, you would probably do pretty well. My wife's a teacher. There's a reason why she doesn't tell the students what the questions are going to be before the test. Because if you knew, then you would probably score pretty high. And that's what it was like playing against the Colts last year. It was like taking a test that you already had all the answers to. So while I don't think that the Indianapolis Colts will have a top 5 defense, I do think that they'll be better than 24th in points allowed and 29th in total defense. I think they'll be closer to kind of being the middle of the road. Maybe turnover luck bounces their way. If that happens, then maybe, just maybe, they're a top 10 defense. But top 5, not happening. Absolutely no chance that happens. Okay? So I do think that they'll be better. I just don't think that they're going to be great. Like, this isn't going to be a Colts defense that's winning games for the Colts, because that's really, to me, like, those are the best defenses in the NFL. Like, the Steelers' defense last year was awesome because their defense was able to go out there and win them games. The Chiefs' defense is always one of the better ones in the NFL. Why? Because their defense is able to go out there and win them games. That's the very simple reality of it. That is what the best defenses in the NFL do. And this Colts defense, while I think it will be better, do I expect for this Colts defense to be able to go out there and win games for the Colts? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I do think that the Colts defense will be better, just not top 5. Last little note here on Coach Anarumo. Listening to his interview with Kay Adams, I enjoyed how much he brought up taking the ball away in his interview. He brought up, forcing turnovers and tackling better so often. Like those were clearly his 2 biggest points. And it's just so different than hearing Gus Bradley, who talked about fundamentals all the time. And fundamentals are obviously important. Like, that's your basis. Like you set the foundation and then you build off of it, right? But when you're in the NFL, I don't care about your fundamentals. You don't play in the NFL unless you have good fundamentals. Tackle and take the ball away. Do those 2 things. And if the Colts do that, then hey, maybe I'll be wrong, and maybe, just maybe, they'll have a top 5 defense like they want, but I would be very, very surprised if that happened. Now, something that I expect to happen, I expect for us to be wowed by and enamored by Tyler Warren. That guy is undoubtedly going to be successful. He's going to play in the NFL and be an impactful player for a decade or more. I'm not giving you anything new there. That's kind of the expectation when you're taking 14th overall in the NFL draft. But here's Quentin Nelson confirming the suspicions that Tyler Warren is going to be a good NFL player for a long time.
I would just say, like, he has really just been a great rookie. Each day he comes to work and just has his head down and he just grinds. I mean, after the first camp practice, he's in there doing bicep curls and some shrugs and triceps. Like, what are you doing, rookie? You're trying to make me look bad, all this stuff. And then he's just been really consistent, tough. He's already shown a lot of toughness and just consistency every day. I feel like you don't see the kid have a bad day, but you talk to him and he's always like, I could do better. And you just love to see that, someone who is humble and wants to get better each day.
Quentin Nelson right there talking about Colts' new rookie tight end, Tyler Warren. And the more I hear people talk about Tyler Warren, the more I like him. Quentin Nelson is one of the very few players for the Colts, really people with the Colts, period, that when he speaks, I genuinely care about what he's saying and I genuinely believe him. Quentin Nelson is all business. Like, that's a serious dude who wants to win football games, doesn't really care about much else. And he doesn't entertain stupid questions. So someone asked him a question, I think it was Kravitz, asked him something about, like, can you, I guess Quentin Nelson said something to the team, kind of like trying to get guys back in line, trying to get them refocused or whatever. And Kravitz was like, like, how do you do that? And have you always been able to do that? And can you make a leader? And it was just like, I don't know. Next question. And I was like, that's awesome. Anyway, when Quentin Nelson calls someone tough, when Quentin Nelson calls someone a hard worker and a good rookie, and all the other things, positive things that he said about Tyler Warren, that is notable to me. Because Quentin Nelson isn't the kind of guy to, he's not going to throw his teammates under the bus, but he's also not DeForest Buckner, who thinks everything is great and everyone's doing well and everyone's gotten better and everyone's doing this and all that kind of stuff. Okay. And it's just really nice and comforting to know that the Colts took a guy in Tyler Warren who can not only play, but is also very serious about being good at football, going and working out after practice, doing the extra things, the things that Anthony Richardson wasn't doing his first 2 years in the NFL. And I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen an influx of players like this across all sports. Tyler Warren is 23 years old. I'm 25, so we're same generation. People around my age love Kobe Bryant, love him. And rightfully so, great basketball player, but it's not really about the basketball stuff with Kobe Bryant. The reason why people my age love Kobe Bryant is because of the Mamba mentality stuff. Like that is something that has been talked about and emphasized for my generation a ton. Like if you get on TikTok, there's this trend where people make these like really cool like highlight edits and stuff. And the number of Kobe Bryant ones where he's talking about the mentality of working hard and how you have to do extra and do all these different things is just really cool. And so I'm not really surprised that Tyler Warren is doing that. And I'm kind of surprised that there aren't more young players like this, given the idolization of Kobe Bryant growing up. Indiana basketball, they're in Puerto Rico right now. Someone in the YouTube chat said that they're losing by a lot, 46-28. Jeez Louise. It's early. Look, last night or a couple nights ago, they were playing a game. They're down by 23 at the half, and they ended up winning by 20. So maybe give them a second. Either way, very excited about Indiana basketball, which is going to be here before we know it. We are less than 3 months away from it. In addition to that, speaking of basketball and 3-point shooting, your boy will be at the fair tomorrow from noon to 3, taking on any and all challengers in a 3-point contest. If you beat me, you win a prize. Don't count on that, though. I will be beating any and all challengers. That's going to do it here on The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Hopefully, I will see you at the fair tomorrow. I'll be doing my show here from 10 to noon, and then I will be heading down to the fair with Dan Dockich after that. The Dan Dockich Show comes your way next. Should be a Leary and Kent Sterling Power Hour Monday. A lot of Colts stuff, a lot of IU basketball. So don't touch that dial. The Dan Dockich Show comes your way next. I'll talk to you tomorrow, starting at 10 a.m.